Didiji's charming and uplifting speeches awaken the mind and stir the soul, while her Nam Sankirtan enters deep in the hearts of listeners, inspiring them with devotional love for Radha Krishna. I request all of you to please listen to her discourse very attentively and kindly switch off your cell phone or put them in airplane mode. Now, as a token of our respect to Didiji, I request Kathy Wood to offer her a bouquet.
Radhe Radhe. That's beautiful. श्रीमद् सद्गुरु सरकार की, लाडली लाल की जय। गुरु आराधना दिश्च गुरु परम दैवतम गुरु परतरम नास्ति कृपालु गुरवे नमः। हृदं भोजे कृष्णः सजल जलदश्यामलतनुः सरोजाक्षः स्रग्वी मुकुटकटकाद्या भरणवान् शरद्राकानाथ प्रतिमवदन श्रीमुरलिका वहन्ध्येयो गोपीगण परिवृतः कुङ्कुमचितः यो ब्रह्माणं विदधाति पूर्वं यो वै वेदांश्च प्रहिणोति तस्मै तग्वंह देवमात्मबुद्धिप्रकाशम् मुमुक्षुर्वै शरणमहं प्रपद्ये। We'll chant for a few minutes. Shri Radhe Radhe Govinda Radhe. 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 Shri Radhe Shri Radhe Radhe Govind 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 Radhe लाडली लाल की जय। Spiritually inclined souls, the topic of my lecture this morning is the true form of Karma Yoga. we can understand the meaning of Karma Yoga through the divine teachings of Supreme Brahma Shri Krishna in the form of the Bhagavad Gita. Shri Krishna tells Arjuna, Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu ma manusmara yudhyacha. Arjuna, remember me every moment and continue to perform physical actions. In other words, continuously remember Shri Krishna and keep on performing your worldly duties. But what is the practical form of Karma Yoga is a very deep question. Because any and every work that we do in our life in this world, it requires the conjunction of the mind and the sense organs. Without the support of the mind, the sense organs, eyes, ears, nose, touch, tongue, are incapable of performing their respective functions. And this is why, if you are deeply engrossed in reading, cooking, playing, or watching your favorite TV show, you will not be able to hear someone calling out your name, even if that someone was sitting right next to you. Once Radha Krishna Paramhans, he was going to a procession of Jagannath Ji. However, he was late, and so by the time he got there, the procession had already passed by. So he stopped to ask this artist. He was sitting on the side of the road doing his artwork. So he inquired with him, "Did you see a procession pass by?" And the man said, "No, I didn't. I didn't." You can imagine a procession consisting of hundreds of participants. There's so much commotion and chaos, drums beating, everyone chanting, dancing, and all of that. And even so, this man absolutely didn't take any notice of the procession. So, someone sitting nearby said to that man, "You're lying to such a great saint as Ramakrishna Paramhans." So the man said, "I'm not lying. I am honestly saying, and I didn't, in fact, notice, didn't hear anything, because my mind was so engrossed in creating this artwork that I absolutely paid no attention. I didn't hear." So Ramakrishna Paramhans sat right there, and he went into trance, and he went into samadhi to see, and he saw that this man was in fact telling the truth. He was so engrossed, he was so absorbed in doing what he was doing that he didn't take any notice of that procession. So Ramakrishna Paramhans said that you are a true Paramhans. Yes, you are a true Paramhans. People call me Paramhans, one who is completely devoid or disconnected from the body. But no, you are. So the point is that if our mind is preoccupied with any kind of work, then our senses are incapable of performing or doing any other kind of work. Yes. And even so, the Bhagavad Gita, Shri Krishna emphasizes the indispensability of remembering him continuously. So Shri Krishna tells Arjuna in the Gita, Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu ma manusmara yudhyacha. Arjuna, perform the work of fighting the battle and yet keep your mind engaged and absorbed in me. Remember me all the while. That is what Shri Krishna told Arjuna. And in the Gita itself, Shri Krishna has also mentioned or told, Yo mam smarati nityashah Gita, tesham nityabhiyukta nam Gita, evam satata yukta ye Gita, tesham satata yukta nam Gita. So all of these verses of the Gita indisputably prove that God must be remembered all the time. So, how? The question is how? Because as I mentioned, if our mind is preoccupied with something, then our senses are incapable of doing any other work because it's already engaged in doing that particular work. Thus, it seems that we can either go about doing our work, our business in the world, or engage our mind in God. But Shri Krishna is telling Arjuna, in fact, telling the world, all of us, Arjuna was instrumental in us being bestowed or receiving that knowledge. So Shri Krishna says, remember me all the time. Yes. But the question is, how can we? How to do it? Well, the answer to this question is simpler than we can imagine. In fact, all of us are habituated. We are in the habit of performing two distinct kinds of actions in our life. So what are those two actions? The first is the kind of action that involves our mind and intellect without emotional attachment. And the second is where the mind and intellect are emotionally attached and involved. And we can understand this through an example. A faithful wife whose husband was living away from home in a different country for several years. She's very attached to him, and he has finally returned. And so to welcome him, she prepares various kinds of delicious dishes, and with words of love, affectionately, she rejoices in serving him all those delicious dishes. And so after he eats, she asks, how was everything? Was everything okay? And his response was, of course, it was very delicious. There's nothing like homemade food. Very delicious. Now later that day, for some reason, the wife was unable to cook dinner, and so she instructs the cook to prepare the meal that evening. So the cook, she gave some instructions, prepare these dishes, use these spices, etc. So she gives him very clear instructions, and so the cook does exactly as he is told. what happens? And the cook serves the food to the husband, and again, he also asks the husband, so how was the food? Was everything okay? And of course, the response is the same. Yes, it was very delicious. Now, think about the situation, this example. The actions of the wife and the cook were exactly the same, no difference. The food that was prepared and offered to the husband and to the man was just as delicious. Whatever the wife cooked and whatever the cook also prepared was very delicious. And yet, there's a difference in their actions. In what was the difference? The difference was that the wife's actions involved her mind, her intellect, and emotional attachment. Whereas the cook, he cooked and prepared the meal using his mind and intellect, but without emotional attachment. And how was this known? It was known when the wife went over to the neighbors and told her, and just bubbling with joy and excited, she tells the neighbor, oh, my husband came today. And she gives her a big hug out of just being excited. The cook, on the other hand, he goes home and he says to his wife, God knows where he just appeared from today. It took me 4 hours to prepare the meal. And not only that, I'm extremely tired. I'm very exhausted today. You know, a cook's job is the worst job in the world. This is what the cook says to his wife. Now the wife, because she loves her husband, there was emotional attachment in her actions while she prepared the food for her husband. The cook, on the other hand, is not emotionally attached to the husband. In fact, his mind is lovingly attached to his wife and to his children. So just as the cook, who is mentally attached to his wife and his children while performing the job of cooking, Sri Krishna tells us through the Gita that this is exactly what we have to do. That while performing, or rather, while our minds are attached in God, physically, we go about our business in the world, just doing our duties. That is what Sri Krishna tells in the Gita. And this is essentially the philosophy of karma yoga. Karma, actions. Yoga, attachment of the mind in God. So, in essence, we are in the habit of performing two kinds of actions, those that involve attachment and those that do not involve attachment. So, just as a snake is dangerous as long as its fangs are intact. But the moment the fangs are removed, then that snake becomes a tame creature, and it is incapable of bringing any harm to anyone. So in the same way, whatever work and actions we perform in our life, we do in our life, those actions become a cause of bondage only when our mind is attached to the outcome or to the fruits of those actions. But if we perform those actions in a detached manner without expecting gain or loss, then those same actions are not a cause or a source of bondage for us. And that is why what we have to do is tan karme man yarme. In other words, we go about doing our work and our duties, and yet keep our mind, our emotional attachment in God. The question, however, is how do we do that? How can we work in the world and not be attached to the work that we perform? How is that possible? Well, you may be surprised to know that we are already in the habit of doing so. In fact, 90% of our work that we perform are without attachment. Yes. And the series of detached works that we do, even in a single day, begin the moment we roll ourselves, our bodies out of bed. You may wake up at 6 o'clock, for example. Yes, you do not want to leave the comfort of your bed. It's nice and cozy and warm. You do not want to leave. But your intellect reasons that if you do not, then you will be late for work. And so what do? You reluctantly get out of bed and start your morning rituals, such as brushing your teeth, taking a shower, and so on. Now, all of these actions are being performed by us on a daily basis without any attachment. We don't get attached. We were not attached to these. Likewise, when you go to your work, when you go to your office, your workplace, you do your work, your job, in a detached fashion, in a detached manner. Yes. How many workers are in fact attached to those files that keep them occupied all day? Let's face it. Most workers will agree that the best and the most enjoyable part of their day are those lunch breaks and those coffee breaks. Yes. So we are already in the habit of doing so. Take another example. A nurse in a maternity ward in a hospital, she helps deliver so many babies in her work, but she does not, when she works, she does so in a detached manner. She doesn't get attached to any of those babies that she helps to deliver. If the baby is born healthy, she congratulates the parents. If something goes wrong, then she offers her sympathy. That's what she does. But she does so, she just goes about her work in a detached manner. She doesn't get attached. She just discharges her duty. That's all she does. So even though she's using her mind, she is not attached to what she's doing. Moreover, just as we perform so many works in a detached manner in the world, we are also detached from a lot of people in the world in general. In our life, our attachment is reserved for a handful of people. Our immediate family, maybe a few friends, acquaintances perhaps, but that's about it. With the rest of the world, what do? We simply behave and conduct ourselves just politely. We're just polite. That's all we do. That is all we do. It's just etiquette. It's all we do. So our attachment is only to a handful of people. So Shri Krishna says, rather the scriptures also tell us, Shri Krishna tells us through the Gita that if we sever the ties of attachment to even these few people that we feel attached to, then what will happen? Then we will have no difficulty in realizing our goal of divine love realization. We will have no difficulty in attaining God. Yes. And let us not forget that no one in the world, in fact, wants our love. What I'm trying to say is, can you think of a single wife who would love her husband if he refused to go to work and told her that she has to, on her own strength, arrange her own finances? Will she take his word that he loves her? No. She will believe that he loves her only on the condition that he fulfills her desires. Only on that condition she will believe that he loves her. Yes. So fulfillment of worldly desires is the quote-unquote definition of love in this world. So if such is the definition of love, shouldn't we just focus our attention on doing our duties and attaching our mind to God, who is, in fact, the true object of our love? Yes. However, some people may object. They may raise an objection and even argue that it is impossible to do anything or to perform any work in the world unless we love people. That is what some people may argue. They may raise an objection. However, a judge in a high court or in a court, a judge will not be able to pass correct judgment if in other words, he can only do his duties or carry out his duties correctly if he is impartial. But if that same judge has, feelings of love or animosity, love or hate, then he will not be able to pass judgment correctly. A surgeon also, he would refuse to operate on his wife or anyone he loves. But the same surgeon performs hundreds of surgeries on various patients with so much ease and confidence. Why? Because he is attached to his wife. But with the rest of the patients, he is merely doing his duty. That's all he's doing. Another example. People generally have this impression or this understanding that a mother can rather take the best care of her child because the mother loves the child the most. But often the love of the mother makes that mother blind to the welfare of that child. Her heart is easily moved when the child is persistently demanding something and crying for something and stomping. Her heart is easily moved. She lets the child go to sleep or go play or watch TV when he is supposed to be studying. So the love of the mother, in fact, spoils the child. That's what it does. Spoils the child. And she does so without even realizing it. So the point here is that since our mind is affected by sentiments of love and hate, it fails to be impartial. And consequently, we are unable to perform our duties properly. That is what happens. So what should we do? Our mind should be like a compass on the ship, which always points toward the north regardless of the direction the ship is sailing in. In the same way, our mind should be directed in the direction of God regardless of whatever duties we are performing in our life. And in fact, this world has been created not so that we can become totally attached and infatuated. No, it has been created so that we can sustain our physical body, so that we can take care of our physical body. Yes. And focus and strive for our goal by focusing the attention of our mind toward God. So what happens? We circle back to where we started. Shri Krishna's instructions to Arjun, Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu ma manusmara yudhyacha. The question is then, how do we do that? So, in order to do that, in order to be able to focus our mind on God, we have to practice devotion. That is what we have to do. Practice devotion. And unfortunately, very few people really and truly know what devotion really is and what it entails. For most people, majority of the people going to a mosque or a temple or church or observing fasts for that matter, or counting the beads on the rosary is what they consider and what they understand as devotion. But that is not devotion. All of these are just mere formalities. And these formalities are of no value if one does not understand that it is the mind that has to be attached. It is the mind that has to be attached. So, to practice devotion really and truly means to understand how to attach our mind in God. And in order to do that, the scriptures and saints advise us that we should find a quiet place in the house. Quiet place. Someone may ask, well, what is the need for privacy in spiritual discipline? Well, so that we can concentrate, we can put our attention on engaging, rather, our mind on God or in God. Engaging our mind in God. Yes. Because our mind initially may be compared to a lamp. If a lamp, it flickers when it is exposed to an open place where there's wind, but it burns steadily in a calm and quiet place. So that's how our mind is. Sri Maharaji gives another example to help us identify this knowledge and to understand this knowledge. So our mind may be compared to milk and the world to water. So if water is mixed into the milk, then it loses its identity. It cannot be restored to its pure form. Then, no. What happens? It's lost. Its identity is lost. So, but if the same milk is converted into butter, then it no longer faces the danger from the water in the form of the world. So no matter how much water you dump on that butter, the water cannot drown that butter. It cannot threaten. So in the same way, our mind in the form of milk is forever being threatened by the world in the form of water. That is what happens. So, what do we have to do? What should we do? We should convert, just like we can convert our mind and make it like butter, so that instead of becoming contaminated by water, it will rise above it. That is what will happen. So what is the process? Well, first we make the milk into butter. And what is the process? We convert it. First, all that milk into yogurt. Keep it in a quiet place, in a warm, quiet place. And when it turns into yogurt, and then we churn it. We churn that yogurt. And then we get butter. So this is exactly the process that we follow. So we make our mind absorb our mind in the loving remembrance of God. We follow this process. And we absorb our mind. We make our mind remember God. Yes, quietly, in a quiet, serene place. And then, when our mind attains to that stage of calmness, then what do? We churn it further with additional, regular, consistent practice of loving remembrance of God. That is what we do until our mind reaches that state where it can rise above the world in the form of water. So that it can never be threatened by the world. It will always rise above it. Yes, that is what we have to do. So this is the process that saints describe and they tell us. And so in order for the mind to reach that stage, what do? We isolate ourselves from all of our responsibilities and obligations and everything. Just isolate ourselves. In other words, renounce everything. And this process of isolating ourselves and sitting quietly in loving remembrance is known as Karm Sannyas. Karm, work, sannyas, we renounce the work to be able to spend quality time with God. Yes. So this is actually what I'm talking about right now. I cannot go into detail as such because time is limited. And of course, I will address this topic in another lecture, but just briefly wanted to touch on this, that loving remembrance. We absorb our mind in the loving remembrance. And in order to do that, people complain that it is very easy to chant the names of Radha Krishna. It is very easy to chant the glories of their virtues and their divine pastimes. But how can we remember them when we haven't even seen them? We only remember when we visualize something or we're able to perceive something. But then how can we remember them when we haven't even seen them? Yes. But we don't do that in the world. We don't get paid first and then we work after. It doesn't work that way. We always earn the reward by putting in effort, by putting in time, discipline. That is what we do. But in spirituality, we expect everything to just happen without absolutely no effort on our part. And it's not like that. It starts with a practice. We gradually build on that practice and we work our way up. So yes, even though we cannot visualize God with our physical senses, mind, and intellect, God is divine, we are material, but even so, scriptures and saints tell us that we can still remember that omnipresent God. And we can take the help of a picture or a deity, place it in front of us, and bring those feelings within us, those sentiments of God's actual divine presence before us, and we engage our mind in that loving remembrance of the Lord, because He is omnipresent, He is all-pervading. All that's needed is the openness of our heart, the receptivity of our heart. Yes, and that's all we need. So we then engage. And when this practice will grow, what will happen? What will happen is that our worldly attachments will begin to recede. To the extent, and to the same extent, our mind will become attached to God, because we only have one mind. So when our mind will begin to get attached to God, naturally our worldly attachments will begin to recede. And when I say will begin to recede, I don't mean that you abandon your family. I don't mean that you abandon everything that you have to do, stop going to work. No, I don't mean that. I mean you abandon that attachment to the world, but you still continue working in the world. You still continue doing your duties and fulfilling your obligations and responsibilities and everything. You don't renounce that. So, as I mentioned earlier, because it is the attachment to the outcome of our work that binds us. That is the source of our bondage. It is not the actual physical action. So when the attachment of our mind will begin to grow in the Lord, to that extent, our worldly attachment will begin to diminish. It will begin to recede. That is what will happen. They'll go hand in hand. So we continue doing our duty, and at the same time, we also begin to grow our attachment to the Lord. And so, Sri Maharaji gives an example of just like a wheel, the wheel of our car, it keeps rotating on the axle. But the axle itself is fixed and unmoving. So in the same way, our mind is fixed on the Lord. But our body, we have to keep doing our work. We have to feed ourselves, to feed our family. We have to do karma. But yoga, which is the attachment, is the key. That is the secret. And so we should learn this. And in order to achieve success in Karma Yoga, this is the process that Sri Maharaji, in fact, the secret to Karma Yoga or success in Karma Yoga lies in engaging our mind in sadhana, in devotion, in bhakti. That is what has to happen. And how we can do that practically, This is what we're here for. This is why Radha Madhav Dham exists. This is why we are here to help, to guide, to coach, to navigate. And our satsangs are, in fact, a practical experience of the divine knowledge, the divine philosophy that is imbued within our scriptures. So the true form of Karma Yoga lies, or in fact is, we do our duties, but the attachment of our mind lies in God. And that is how, in order to achieve success, as I mentioned, we practice, we do sadhana. And sadhana, the core of sadhana is engaging our mind in loving remembrance. And as regards all these various kinds of practices, all of these chanting or reciting the scriptures, offering the arti, which we'll be doing in a few minutes, or for that matter, offering bhog at the altar, and all of these are just physical formalities. These are the means of engaging our mind. But none of these are, in fact, bhakti. None of these are devotion. These are just simply the means. These are instrumental. They help us, or they aid in engaging our mind in the loving remembrance. But these are not bhakti, which people, because of lack of understanding and lack of knowledge, they naively think or assume that just offering bhog is bhakti. Verbally chanting, mechanical chanting of the divine name is bhakti. Reciting the scriptures is bhakti. Observing fasts is bhakti. None of these is bhakti, because bhakti is in the heart. It is in the heart, and it has to be developed. It has to be awakened through practice, and that practice is what we call Bhakti Yoga Sadhana. And that Bhakti Yoga Sadhana is advocated by my Gurudev Jagadguru Shree Kripaluji Maharaj, whose divine teachings, whose divine lectures are the source of true inspiration for souls like you and I. And Shri Maharaj's lectures are all over YouTube, hundreds and hundreds of lectures. Of course, we broadcast them here in our mandir as well. And so these teachings that I just presented before you are his divine gift to all of us. And as a humble servant of my Gurudev, I attempted to share Shri Maharaj's teachings before you today. Now, in addition, I wanted to also acknowledge that we are observing or honoring Basant Panchami. Basant Panchami is a celebration. It's a celebration to welcome spring. And it falls on the 5th day of the bright fortnight of the month, the Hindu month of Magh, which falls in January, February. And so it's just welcoming spring. But here at Radha Madhav Dham, we honor any and every celebration by rejoicing and feeling delighted in the glory and the grace of Sri Radha Krishna. So yes, while Mother Nature is going to blossom, and she is blossoming, and she is very happy, and all of that is great, serenity, beauty, outer beauty, physical beauty, yes, but all of that is temporary. But we use this outer beauty as a means to celebrate the spring of God's love. We use this beautiful outer beauty, the surroundings and everything. Feel grateful, of course. We're grateful to Mother Nature for providing this beautiful surroundings and everything, yes. But we utilize that. We feel gratitude for that with the purpose. We have a purpose, that inner purpose. So we really and truly are celebrating the spring of God's grace, the grace of Hari Guru. We're celebrating the spring of their love for us. And that spring, it never diminishes. It is forever. It's evergreen. It is ever within us. So to really and truly honor this Basant, those should be our sentiments, that we are those beautiful yellow. In fact, yellow is the color that signifies, because the fields are, especially in India, North India, the fields are covered with those beautiful yellow mustard flowers, and it looks like a bed of just a beautiful yellow carpet. And so that beauty is very pleasing, of course, to the mind and to the heart. But every worldly beauty is temporary. The lasting beauty lies in God's love and His divine grace. So happy Basant Panchami to all of you. I will end my pravachan, my lecture, with these thoughts. I'm not sure what time it is. Is it 12:30? Okay, so just do a few minutes of kirtan, and then we will conclude with Aarti. So we can turn and face the shrine, and Yamini, इधर आ जाओ. Radhe Govinda Radhe Radhe Govinda Radhe Radhe. सब लोग तालियां बजाइए. Everyone can clap. Radhe Govinda Radhe 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 गोविंद राधे राधे 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 गोविंद राधे श्रीमद् सद्गुरु सरकार की लाडली लाल की
Radhe Radhe. First of all, I wanted to thank Diwakari Devi for bringing us such enlightening lecture on Karm Yoga. Can we please give her a round of applause? Happy Vasant Panchami for everyone. Welcome to Shri Raseshwari Radha Rani's temple. It's a privilege to know that this is one of the 5 divine dhams of Jagadguru Shree Kripaluji Maharaj organization, JKP. We want to welcome all our viewers, our out-of-town devotees, and our first-time visitors, and all other devotees. So today we're celebrating Vasant Panchami, and there's lots of yellow colors, just as in India. It's covered with yellow flowers, and the first buds of spring are revealing themselves on earth at this time. Vasant Panchami starts the Holi season. Holi hai. We do celebrate many of the major festivals, as Didi had said, and you can join our email list by going to the reception desk or going to our website. We also sponsor Gita classes and meditation intensives and camps. You can find all the information on the website and at the reception desk, so please make sure you join our email list. We have opportunities to sponsor Sunday Prashad. You can sign up. We may be starting that very soon. You can also visit the gift shop in our snack stand for gifts and yummy treats. We also have Shiksha School. This is starting in a few weeks, and you will have time to enroll yourself because we have adult classes and your children. A few of the classes we're offering are Hindi, Tamil, Kannada, Marathi, and Sanskrit. We also have dholak, tabla, harmonium, classical music, dance, art, algebra, and many more. You can visit shikshaschool.com and register online. You can also support our temple on Amazon. Simply shop at smile.amazon.com to support your favorite charity, JKP, Radha Madhav Dham. It's registered as a 501c3, charitable and educational organization, and 0.5% of all sales goes towards your selected charity, so you can also ask your employer to sponsor our donation match. You're also invited every evening from 7:30 p.m. to 9 p.m. to come join us and have your family join us for evening satsang. If you aren't able to, you can join us on YouTube live stream. Now we're all going to stand and come close for darshan and arti. If you have sponsored anything, please come forward. Radhe Radhe.